What are some of the measures that an individual and also organizations like the American Lung Association can advocate for to help keep moving these levels in the right direction?
Yeah, so I think the most important thing to do uh, as individuals is to try to reduce our reliance on fossil fuels. So electrifying our motor vehicles, electrifying our home appliances are the big things we can do as individuals, because that will reduce both particle pollution from fossil fuel combustion, but also precursors for ozone.
Right.
Yeah, so we need clean transportation, clean power generation. Uh, the Lung Association has been a standout in terms of advocating for uh, clean air, common sense clean air regulations, and I know it will continue to do so. The Lung Association is also trying to mobilize people to understand the intersection between climate change and air quality. We can have co-benefits if we reduce our reliance on fossil fuels in our society and economy. Uh, that'll mitigate climate change by reducing CO2 emissions, but it will also improve public health by improving air quality.
So, in addition to measuring these levels of ozone and particulate matter and ranking the worst and best areas, and you alluded to this earlier as well, the ALA is very concerned about the inequities that exist regarding poor air quality exposure. We know that communities of color are disproportionately exposed to unhealthy air, likely in part because of socioeconomic and historically racist policies such as redlining, and that people of color are also more likely to be living with one or more chronic conditions that may make them more vulnerable to the health impact of air pollution, as you mentioned as well, including asthma, diabetes, and heart disease. Can you comment on what this year's report tells us about the inequities that exist?
Yes, one of the things I like about this year's report, there's more of a focus on the inequities. And this is factual. This is not me being on a soapbox.
Right.
We know that low-income communities of color in general across the country have a greater burden of exposure to air pollution, especially PM 2.5, especially from diesel vehicles and from coal-fired power plants. And there's really no question about it. So what we're trying to do in California is address local hotspots of air pollution in those communities, because the national ambient air quality standards from the US EPA are about regional air quality. They actually put the air quality monitoring stations away from freeways, away from power plants, away from ports and rail yards on purpose, because they want to get the region's air quality. What we're doing in California, and I think other states as well are moving in this direction, is to try to do community level monitoring, to actually put monitors where the hotspots of exposure are. So just to give an example, I live in Berkeley, California, and just up the road a piece from Berkeley is Richmond, California, where there's a confluence of several large freeways, busy freeways, a rail yard, a port, and a refinery. And so people that live in West Richmond get exposure from all those sources. There's no question that they have a disproportionate burden of exposure. And as you mentioned, they may have other risks for poor health outcomes. So what we're doing in California, it's a state law that mandates that the California Air Resources Board, part of Cal EPA, actually assist certain communities that have been identified as being particularly disadvantaged by air pollution exposure to do community monitoring and then come up with community emission reduction plans. I think that's where we need to go as a nation. Our air quality is better than it was in 1970 when the Clean Air Act was passed, but not everybody has equally benefited from that cleaner air.
Yeah, just to date myself, I remember a television series called L.A. Law. Opening credits always was the landscape of Los Angeles, the skyscrapers. And if you look at that now and compared to some recent pictures of LA, we've made a big progress in the look of that smog that enveloped the city. Uh, yeah, great transition there. The What I want to do for some closing comments. Can you consider the role of climate change based on your expert perspective as a physician and a researcher? And how would you describe the changes in air quality that have occurred the last 25 years of our report? And what might you speculate on in the next 25 years? So when the 2049 State of the Air report comes out, you may or may not be surprised as to what it shows.
Well, I think we can continue the progress we've made if we double down on trying to reduce our reliance on fossil fuels, both for transportation and power generation. We need to do that to keep global warming from totally getting out of control. If we do that, and we can, there are a number of studies from very solid economists to show that it's possible for us to move forward to reduce fossil fuel combustion without destroying our economy. And it's a heavy lift, but it's totally doable if we really put our minds to it. And when I say our minds, I mean collective, not just the US, but especially all the developed countries around the world. And if we do that, we'll also improve air quality. So I hope in 25 years, if I'm still around, which
Let's hope so.
be unlikely because I'd be 100, I'd like to see that we did do the heavy lifting to reduce our combustion of fossil fuels, so reduce CO2 emission, mitigate climate change, and improve air quality.